Black Critic Guy, and I'm here today to review the new Star Wars film, Rogue One. Now, when I heard the premise of this film, I immediately thought, so it's basically Saving Private Ryan in space, but instead of having to find a soldier, they have to find the Death Star plans. I could roll with that. That sounds like it could be a pretty entertaining, exhilarating, epic, and intense story with a lot of potential to it. But I was a little hesitant to be fully on board with the film considering who they chose to direct it, which is Gareth Edwards. And for those who don't know who Gareth Edwards is, he's the guy that directed the 2014 version of Godzilla. Fun movie, but it sorely lacked in the story and character department. The characters were weak and the story was pretty average and forgettable. The only cool thing about Godzilla was Godzilla whenever he was on screen and when you could see him. But the rest of the film just was kind of, I don't really care about any of this. So I was worried that he was going to implement that in this film too. Like, I'm just gonna not really care about the story or characters. It's just gonna be all spectacle. But as more and more trailers came out, I started to be more comfortable with the idea of him directing it. It seemed like it was coming along smoothly, and then there were the reports of the reshoots, and apparently they kicked him out of the editing room, so again, I started getting worried again. But so far, the reviews have been somewhat positive from what I've heard, so I went in with an open mind, excited to see another Star Wars film. And after seeing it, what do I think? Gareth Edwards strikes again. Because as much as this film is an entertaining spectacle, it suffers in the story and character department yet again. I felt like I was watching Godzilla once again, where I'm like, oh man, that's cool. Oh man, that looks great. But I don't really care much about these characters, and the story's kind of like, I will say this, the story here is way better than the story in Godzilla. But come on, it's a Star Wars story. That automatically makes it better. But that's not to say that there aren't any good qualities to this film, guys. There are quite a few. The absolute best thing this film has to offer us are its incredible and mind-blowing visual effects. I mean, from the lush environments to the way that the robots look, the worlds look, and especially how they made some of the characters look. I don't want to give it away, but let's just say that there are a couple characters that show up in this film that when I saw them, I'm like, oh my God. That looks so uncanny! Wow, that looks amazing! I was so surprised. It actually felt like this character was actually there. I mean, holy shit, we have come a long way when it comes to the visuals that we can use for film. Just the CGI, it just blew my mind when I saw it, guys. And although I knew that this character was going to be in the film, I didn't expect them to do this with the character. It just, wow. I have to give the film props there. That was amazing. Being that Gareth Edwards is more of a spectacle director, it's no surprise that the visuals look incredible in this film. And not to mention that he makes some really awesome and intense action set pieces. The final battle in the film looks pretty damn awesome. It actually feels like you're in a war. That's the most Saving Private Ryan this film gets, by the way. Though I can't say the film fully engrossed me with its story, there are parts to it I really enjoyed. Like the whole build-up to how they find out about the Death Star plans, I thought that was pretty interesting, and it does kind of fill in a little hole that a lot of Star Wars fans were complaining about for many years, so they fill up that gap. It was cool to see the different places that they go to. Like you go to Jeddah, which was the city for the Jedi before they were wiped out by the Empire. That was a really cool pit start, but it was really cool to see the city of the Jedi, or formerly what was the city of the Jedi. And there were a handful of characters that I thoroughly enjoyed. Undeniably, the best character in this entire film, everyone's going to agree with this statement, was the robot. K2SO played excellently by Alan Tudyk. I don't know what is up with this guy and just playing really likable and charismatic robot characters. First it was iRobot, and now here he is in Rogue One, a Star Wars story. I mean, he's just so charismatic. He's full of charm and wit. He can be sarcastic with our characters, and he forms a convincing bond with the main character, Jin Erso. He's the only character that actually forms a convincing bond with the lead. I like their relationship, and I liked how they kind of grow a fondness and respect for each other by the end of this film. If there was ever a character in this film that I was attached to and cared about and wanted to see them survive this situation, it was the robot. I was hoping like, okay, I hope at least he makes it out because he is freaking awesome. And Donnie Yen as the blind warrior, he was pretty badass. I liked him a lot. I would have loved to see more of him and see him interact with more characters, but for the scenes that he was given, he was really awesome. That fight scene, oh my god. No one does a really superb and thrilling fight scene better than Donnie Yen. I mean, I literally saw him portraying Ip Man in his fight scene. It was so freaking cool. And if coolness and spectacle were all the things you need to carry a movie, this would have been a great movie. But you also need a lot of substance to make your movie really stand out, and this is where the film suffers. I do not care if I get a lot of hate for my criticisms for this film. I don't care if I get a backlash from all of the Star Wars fans that have been subscribed to me for years, but all of a sudden, because I just criticized one film that was a part of the Star Wars universe, all of a sudden they're gonna hate me and unsubscribe. I don't care. I believe in being honest with not only you guys, but with myself. And to be perfectly honest, this film suffers from a lack of investment to the story and to its characters. Yes, there are some quality parts in the story. I'm not denying that. But if I were to say that I was fully engaged and cared about every single moment of the story, that would be a bold-faced lie, because there are just some moments that drag on for far too long, and I really didn't care what was happening in this part of the story. All I really cared about was for them to get to where they're going to steal the Death Star plans. That's really all I cared about. And quite frankly, guys, I personally believe that the entire reasoning for this story to exist was to correct a glaring issue that a lot of people had with the original film. Like, they based this entire film off of that one thing so that they can correct it and be like, oh, see, it now makes sense why this exists, so hey, we tied it up nicely, instead of it just being its own unique, interesting story. It's mostly just there to retcon an issue. I don't know. Am I the only one that felt that way about the story of Rogue One? Am I alone in this assumption? Am I overthinking it? Or were there some of you out there that felt the same way? Like, yeah, just as I'm watching this film, it just feels like a justification for that one thing and not really just trying to be its own story. But I think for me, what hurt the most was the execution of the characters. They were poorly done, as many of the characters just come off as blah. They're average, generic, forgettable, uninspired, unengaging, and worst of all, cliche, especially when it comes to their backstories. From Jin Erso to Cassian, their backstories are so played out, you've seen it a dozen times before, and they add nothing new to these cliche backstories. Had they added an interesting twist to this old cliche, kind of refresh it, maybe I would have gave them a pass for using it, but no. It's the same derivative cliche backstory that we've seen in a lot of countless reluctant heroes in other films. Guys, I really wanted to like Jin Erso. From the trailers, it looked like she was a badass, a rebel without a cause, and I thought, okay, that would be interesting, seeing a character who's kinda a part of the rebellion but doesn't fully believe in the rebellion. Hell, that first trailer for Rogue One is much better than the film that we actually got. I felt like there was a much more enthralling story in that first trailer than the one that we got here, and presented us with a much more dynamic, three-dimensional character. With Jin Erso in this movie, she's just kind of there. She doesn't really inspire me, or doesn't really have much to her that would make me say, yeah, she's such an enthralling main character. I really like her. I'm fully invested in her journey. She kind of just comes off a bit whiny most of the time. And that's not the type of character I was expecting. I didn't expect a whiny brat. I expected someone who's like, I don't give a shit. Maybe kind of like a mix of Anakin and Han Solo, if, you know, Anakin wasn't such a whiny bitch. It felt like she was more Anakin than Han Solo, when I want her to be more Han Solo than Anakin. Now, it should be noted for the record that Felicity Jones's performance wasn't half bad. She did a decent job with what she was given for her character, but unfortunately, she wasn't given much. The same goes for Diego Luna for his character, Cassian. I feel like there was a complex character hidden underneath it all, but all we got was surface level character traits, and it just didn't feel like the character was all that enthralling. It was disappointing, and I would have loved to see Cassian and Jyn kind of form this camaraderie, form this kinship, grow some respect for each other. But throughout the film, I never feel like they really come closer as a duo. I never felt like they earned each other's respect. It was kind of just tossed on them like, yeah, this is the point in time we need to have respect for each other. We're gonna go on this mission, we're gonna sacrifice it all for the good of humanity or the universe and all that stuff. But it doesn't feel organic. It doesn't come naturally to the characters. In fact, that goes for the entire Rogue One team. I never felt like they all came together as a team. They were just kind of part of the circumstances, and they kind of got roped in with each other, and that's how it all came about. If it was like a moment where they all realized, hey, you know, we kind of need to come together and do this thing for the good of the rebellion, and I would have been like, yeah, that works. But no, it's just kind of like, we're here, I guess we might as well help you out. I mean, what else am I gonna do, right? Let's just go and do it. And that's not how you form an organic team. That's not how you build teamwork. It has to happen gradually throughout the film. Through their experiences and time with each other, they form a bond. They form a kinship. They earn each other's respect. I mean, they make about 2 or 3 pit stops before the actual conclusion of the film where they all come together, and in those moments, there was never a moment where I'm like, yeah, we're forming a bond with each other, we're forming that connection, we are team, go team. No, it's nowhere in the film. And then there's the antagonist of the film, who is just, I don't like, he's just a freaking weasel. And he's constantly bitching throughout the film like, man, this was my idea, I want credit, give me the credit, mine. That's really all he does, but he doesn't come as a threatening force. He's kind of just a little punk bitch that wants everyone to give him credit and realize how great he is. He has really low self-esteem. That's the best thing I took away from the character. Like, he has low self-esteem, so in order to prove his worth, he has to do these grandiose gestures in order to get everyone to say, yeah, you're great, here, pat you on the back, buddy. And he's not much of a threat. What moment in this film did the character come off as threatening? I remember, like, when I saw that first trailer and you see him just standing there with that robe of his, I'm like, oh shit, this guy means business. He might be just as good as Tarkin. Maybe we might just get our very own Tarkin in this film, but nope, he's... Yawn fest. And Forrest Whitaker's character, in my honest opinion, didn't need to be in the film. Like, he doesn't really serve much of a purpose. You could make the argument that he's in the film because he has a relationship with Jyn, and he had a relationship with Jyn's father, and that's how they kind of like come together and stuff. And he also had the pilot that had the information that Jyn needed, and he just happens to be in Forrest Whitaker's possession. But if you were to write him out of the film, and I legitimately mean this, write him out of the film, and just have the pilot be the one to send the message to Jyn, and have him like just staying in the city of Jeddah, and the rebels and the Empire are trying to find him in the city of Jeddah, and it's a race against time who could find the pilot before the other does. That would have been more enthralling. That would have been much more intense instead of Forrest Whitaker kidnapping the pilot and holding him until Jyn shows up and like, oh Jyn, it's good to see you again, Jyn. How you been? Oh, your father left me a message. I gotta do this and that, and I don't really serve much purpose but to spew out exposition for you to head out to your journey. Okay, Jyn, I'll see you later. The film is just missing something organic about the story and its characters. That is the main issue I'm trying to get at with this. But overall, guys, Rogue One, a Star Wars story, was a very mixed bag of a film for me. While I really got a kick out of the spectacle of the film, it really suffered in the substance part, as I didn't feel an investment, I didn't feel engaged or enthralled by anything that was happening on screen. Sure, it looked great, but it didn't feel great. I didn't feel the weight of most of the things that happened in this film. And altogether, the experience was rather underwhelming. And that's why I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5 stars. It's okay. You know, if you don't see Rogue One, I don't think anyone's going to beat you up for it. No one's going to be like, wow, dare you. You have to see it. It's very vital to see. No, you don't really need to see it. It's not really that necessary. But as always, guys, I'm not the end-all be-all opinion when it comes to Rogue One, a Star Wars story. I would love to know what you guys thought about the film as well. Did you absolutely adore it? Is it your favorite Star Wars film of all time? Or is it really boring, contrived, predictable, you really didn't care what was happening? And let me know what is a Star Wars spin-off film that you really want to see. For me, Yoda. Make a spin-off film where Yoda is the main character. Make that right now. Green like that shit, Disney. Get it? Because Yoda's not in the outro. Not in the outro. And stay tuned, guys. Lots more videos are coming your way, from the 12 days of anime to anime reviews to some special videos that I have planned for this month. So stick around. And as always, if you'd like to support the Black Critic Guy just a smidge more, why not donate to my Patreon account? There's a link in the description right to it. And if you'd like to send me any fan letters, send it to this P.O. box right up here. And as always, if you would like to be a part of the Black Critic crew and not miss out on a single awesome video on this channel, please hit that subscribe button below, like this video if you really enjoyed it, and I'm Tony Watt II, the Force Wielder, known as the Black Critic Guy. Till then, peace, YouTube!